I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago.
Hello friends, welcome to my channel. This is going to be a super special episode and I am so excited to be here with y'all today. I can't wait to share some fun celebration activities. Welcome back to my channel, everyone. It is so good to see you all. I am so excited to be sharing today with y'all. This is a special day. This week actually marks my 1-year anniversary here on YouTube, and oh my gosh, I just cannot believe how fast this year has gone by. It's just like almost the blink of an eye, and I know that seems like such a cliche, but it has gone so fast, and I'm just amazed at all the amazing things that have happened through this journey that I've endeavored upon this past year. And the most important part, or the most special part to me, has been all of the amazing friends that I have met through each and every one of you. And y'all's support on my channel just means everything to me. And I feel blessed and I feel humbled to have you all here. So with that said, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here to celebrate my 1-year anniversary on YouTube together. To kick off our celebration, we are going to spend some time in the studio working on some sewing projects. Y'all, I am so ready to have warm weather, and it has not been warm here where I live. But I'm ready, and so I keep thinking if I create these amazing spring and summer projects and home decor that maybe the sunshine will come out. It's probably hopeful thinking, but you know, one can hope, right? So anyway, that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna work on some sewing projects for a few things that I want to add to my outdoor spring and summer decor this year. So without further ado, let's head into the studio and kick off our celebration. Alrighty, y'all, we're gonna kick off our very first project with something I've only tried a couple of times. It's kind of a new thing for me, and I've been wanting to learn to embroider. So I'm terrible at it. I'm not very good at it, but I thought it would be fun to try some embroidery techniques in our projects today. So our first one is going to be a fun little pillow. Well, actually, all of our projects today are going to be some pillows that we're going to be creating for my outdoor decor. But our first project will be a fun little worded pillow that we're going to attempt to embroidery. So let's jump into it. Okay, y'all, so for our very first project, we are going to attempt to embroider this lettering onto our pillow front. So we will need a piece of fabric, which is the fabric that I have here. It is cut at 17 inches long by 12 inches high, and this is what's going to be the front of our pillow. And then I just printed this lettering out on my computer. I can have this available for y'all as a free printable, and the link will be in the description box. Then I'm just going to get it centered the best I can on this piece of fabric and then trace over all of this lettering. And I don't actually trace like the outside part of it. I kind of just trace the shape. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. It's easier for you to see than me to explain, I think. But I just kind of go with the shape and the flow of the lettering so that this will be easy for us to embroider over, because we don't want real fat lines. I think it would be harder to embroider over all of these. All right, so we have our letters traced on, and you can see here what it looks like. And I did just use a pencil here, and because I thought pencil would be easier to cover up with our embroidery thread. However, I'm not actually using a traditional embroidery thread here. I thought this would look really cool with some jute. So I went to Hobby Lobby and I found this really thin jute cording. It was back like in their crafty section where like the scrapbook stuff is at. That's where I found it. A lot of times they have it in the wedding section also. But that's what we're going to be using, is just this really, really thin jute cording as our so-called embroidery thread. And I'm just threading it onto the needle there with a needle threader, and you kind of saw me do that. Then I will place one section at a time just in our embroidery hoop here. And if you don't have an embroidery hoop, you might want to go buy some. I got these at Walmart and they were super, super inexpensive because I tried to do this without the hoop and it was a little bit hard to do. So I kind of recommend you getting a hoop. So then we will just start by poking the needle through the bottom part of our H here. And then I'm just going to kind of go in and out with the thread. And I don't really know if this is like a true embroidery technique or not. I'm not even sure what kind of embroidery stitch this would be called. But this is how I started out doing it. And then by the time I got to the L's, I sort of switched things up a little bit, and you will see that in just a few minutes. And oh, I did get my thread caught on that little thing at the top quite a bit, so watch out for that. All right, so now that the H is done, we'll do the L, and you'll notice that I don't actually continue my H into the E from where the H left off, if that makes sense to y'all. I start where we would, make a natural stroke on the E letter, and then they kind of connect as we go around the E. I do apologize that some of this is off camera. It was really hard for me to film this and stay in frame, so I apologize for that. So anyway, I'm just going to keep doing this, and then like I said, when we get to the L's, I kind of switch up the stitching, and I will we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Okay, so we've got our H and our E done, and now we're going to move on to doing the L, and this is where I sort of switched up the stitch. I kind of stopped and watched a couple tutorials on YouTube, and I believe this was called a back stitch, and I'm going to link the tutorials that I watched in the description box for y'all, because like I said, I am a very beginner at embroidery, and I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm actually just kind of winging it here. So, but you can kind of see what I'm doing with this stitch. You go ahead a little ways, and then you kind of come back to the next stitch. And I do feel like this looked a lot better in the end because there wasn't as many gaps. Like you can see a few gaps in my H and my E, where in the two L's, those gaps are completely gone. So now we will just do this same exact thing with our letter O, and then we'll move on to our next step. Okay, y'all, I hope that you've been able to sort of follow along with me and kind of see what I've been doing here, because like I said, I'm not an embroiderer or an embroidery. I'm not sure what the term for that is, but I'm very new to embroidery, and this really wasn't meant to be a tutorial. I just kind of wanted to try this experiment and thought it would be fun for us to do this together, but hopefully you've been able to follow along and kind of see what I've been doing. So we just finished the O, and so that'll finish the front of this pillow cover, which I did go ahead and sew off camera, but in our next project we sew the pillow cover together. So I'm just going to go ahead and stuff the pillow in here and give it a good fluffing, and that will finish off this first project. Alrighty guys, what do we think? I feel like this actually came out kind of cute. It's not bad for a first attempt. At least you can read it. You can see that it says hello, right? You can, right? So anyway, I don't know. Y'all are gonna have to let me know. Is this a yay or a nay kind of project? Alrighty, are y'all ready for project number 2? We're gonna do a little bit more embroidering, and we're gonna do a flower. So I don't know about this one. I don't know how well it's gonna turn out, but we're gonna go give it our best shot. So let's jump into project number 2. Okay, y'all, so should we try this again? Our first attempt was semi-successful, I would say, so let's go ahead and see what kind of trouble we can get into with this flower. So I just created this flower pattern in the computer, and then I cut it out on my cutter, and I will link it in the description box for y'all so that you can have this as a free printable. And so I'm just going to go ahead and trace this onto our piece of fabric here, and this is going to be our second pillow. So obviously I'm tracing this onto the front, and this one is a square pillow that is 18 by 18. And the fabric that I am using here is just some muslin fabric that I got at, I think I got this one at Walmart actually. It came in one of those big bundles of like 2 yards, and it was really inexpensive. So I kind of like this one for projects like this, although it is a pretty thin, it is a thin fabric. It's not like super high quality, but it works great for projects like this that I'm just going to use seasonally and that will be outdoors. So I think it'll hold up okay for just, you know, this short spring season. All right, so we have the flower all traced on, and then I'm going to go ahead and give it a center. And then after I trace this center on, I sort of attach the lines down to the center of the flower to give our petals that, you know, complete petal look, as you can see that I'm doing here. And then we will begin embroidering this. This is going to be fun. I'm a little nervous to try this, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, y'all, so we're gonna give this our best shot, and again, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I do believe this is called a straight stitch. So if any of you out there are embroiderers, please feel free to give me some advice in the comments down below, because I could certainly use it here. So we're just going to fill in this petal we're going to do each petal individually, and I fill it in by doing what's just a back and forth stitch. So I insert the needle up from behind, which I apologize that this keeps going off frame. So I insert the needle up behind on the line of the petal, and then kind of loop it across to the other side, and it creates this like loop of sorts. So then as I pull it tight, it starts to fill in that petal. And hopefully you can kind of see what I'm doing here and what I mean, because I know this is probably confusing, and I probably am not making a lot of sense here because this is hard for me to explain being a beginner at this. So hopefully you can kind of see what I'm doing. Okay, y'all, so far things are going okay. Even though I don't really know what I'm doing, I think this is going to work out all right. I think this is actually going to create kind of a cool effect, even if it's not a true technical embroidery technique. I think it's still working all right. So as you can see, I kind of go in from the back of the petal and then cross over and go down from the front to create that loop that will eventually, all these little loopy strands fill in this entire petal. Alrighty, so we got our first petal complete, and yes, I do think I have a lot to learn here, but it is working, and it does look kind of cool so far. So we're just going to go ahead and continue this same exact process on each and every one of the petals of this flower. Okay, y'all, we did it. We got all of our petals successfully filled in. And so now we're going to go ahead and do the center. And I'm doing what is called a French knot for the center, which I'll explain in just a moment. But I chose this particular embroidery stitch because it's really textured, and I wanted the center of our flower to have a lot of texture, and I wanted it to stand out and be completely different from the rest of our petals. But let's talk about the petals for just a quick second here. They need some work, and something that I noticed was happening is my fabric bunched up a lot on me. So if anybody out there has some tricks and ideas on how to prevent that, I would love to hear your feedback. Okay, so this French knot, you insert your needle from the back of your fabric to the front, like you kind of can see what I'm doing here. And then you're going to point the needle away from your work, wrap that jute cording or your embroidery thread around your needle 3 to 5 times. I did 5 times because I wanted it to be super textured. And then you take that needle and put it back into your project from the front to the back in almost the same exact spot as you came through the first time. Then hold your little loop here so that you've got good tension on that until it forms like that little loop that you can see like I have here, and then you pull that loop tight and it creates all these cool little knots which give it a lot of texture, and it makes a very super cool center for a flower. So we'll do that one more time. You bring your needle in from the back to the front, and then we wrap our thread around the needle 3 to 5 times. And then we're going to poke that needle back down into our work in almost the same exact spot. And it'll create like this big giant loop. And then hold the tension of that loop kind of tight as you're pulling it and voila, you have this really cool knot. I think this looks super cool, y'all, and I hope that you were able to follow along with me on that. I know this was kind of a little bit harder of a stitch to do, but I will also link the how-to tutorial that I watched to do this in the description box for y'all. Okay, so now let's go ahead and make our pillow cover for this one. And I wanted a different fabric to be the backing, and so I chose this really pretty like plaid gingham type fabric, because these are going to be part of my outdoor decor. So I wanted them kind of, you know, in those greens, which are my favorite colors. And so that's how I chose this one. But of course, you just do you choose whatever fabric suits you and your style. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and sew down that one seam so that we can create a zipper seam. Y'all have seen me do this before, and I will have in my description box a complete tutorial on how to create these pillow covers for y'all. This is step-by-step tutorial. Anyway, so we created that zipper seam. Now we'll go ahead and pin in our zipper, and then we can sew that into place. Okay, y'all, so since my zipper was actually longer than my my project here, I'm going to go ahead and reinforce the bottom of that zipper really, really well by just kind of sewing back and forth, and just making a nice, strong, reinforced stitch so that I can go ahead and cut the excess zipper off, which is fine to do as long as you make sure that you cut it from the bottom side of the zipper, not the top where the actual pull is. And you can see here how I reinforced the end of that really, really well. Next, we'll go ahead and take our seam ripper and open up that seam so that we can reveal the zipper. And then I'm going to open up that zipper about halfway before taking this back to the sewing machine and sewing up our remaining 3 sides. After the remaining 3 sides are sewn together, I do like to take some pinking shears and just go around all of my edges to clean it up, and it also helps keep the fabric from fraying, but it also eliminates a lot of bulk when we go to turn this right sides out. Before turning this right sides out, I do like to just kind of run my finger along all the seam edges just to make sure that there are no gaps and to make sure that everything got properly stitched tightly and that there are no holes or anything. Then we will go ahead and flip this right side out, and then to poke out those corners, just use any kind of a blunt object. You don't want to use anything sharp because it could poke through and then create a hole. So I think here I just use a pencil to poke out all of those edges, and then we will go ahead and stuff our pillow into our newly sewn pillow cover with our really cool embroidered flower on the front. I think this flower is really, really cool, but I definitely have a lot to learn with embroidery still. I think that this could have been a lot better, and you can see where I got lots of little puckers and gaps, and I did iron this down really, really well, but it still just had puckers and gaps. So again, if any of you have some advice on how to eliminate that, I would appreciate hearing from you. And to finish this off, we'll just give this pillow a good fluffing, and voila, we have a really cute pillow. Well, what do we think? I don't know, y'all. I think this one was a lot of work. I put a lot of effort into this one. In real time, this took me almost 3 hours. So just so you know, that's about how long it actually took me to create this one. It did turn out really cute. I learned a lot along the way, and you can see like on some of my petals, I didn't get very straight lines, and I didn't get it filled in very well, but I think there's a learning curve here. So I think this is something I would try again. This one might be my favorite. Y'all, what do you think? Alrighty, y'all. For our last project today, we're gonna just simplify things a little bit, and we're gonna just do an easy, fun applique process to one of our pillows. So let's jump into project number 3. Alrighty, y'all. For this project, we're going to need some fabrics of your choice. You're going to need scissors, you're gonna need thread, you're gonna need a pencil, we're gonna need some iron-on, transfer in infusible facing, and then you're going to need your little flower pattern. So we're going to get started here by first just taking a swatch of fabric, and I just made sure that this swatch was large enough, kind of oversized to fit my flower. Then we will cut a chunk of that fusible interfacing, and I cut the interfacing a little bit smaller than my fabric. Then we're going to place that down on the fabric with the bumpy side down. Then I will take it to my heat press and press that on, and I just kind of go in sections here. So I start with one corner, move to the next corner, and then the next and the next. And I like to use my heat press to do this because I can set the temperature and then the timing as well. So once we have that all into place, we can go ahead and transfer our pattern onto this. So I'm just using the same little flower that we used for our embroidery pillow, and I'm going to flip it over and draw it onto the back side of the interfacing. But I will say that this interfacing is a little bit slick, so make sure you hold your pattern tightly into place, because I kept moving mine around and got a little bit out of lines every once in a while. And then once we have the pattern drawn on, we can go ahead and cut this out. When I cut this out, I just kind of decided, instead of going into every single one of those grooves, that I would first go ahead and just cut the shapes around all the tops. Like you can see what I'm doing here, I just kind of cut all the top shapes. Then I go back in and cut those inside grooves, because it was a little bit easier to cut it this way. All right, now that we have our flower cut out, we can go ahead and remove the backing on our fusible interfacing here, and this will reveal the other side of the glue, which we're going to go ahead and lay this face down on our fabric. And again, I'm just using that same muslin fabric that we've been using for the fronts of all of our pillows. So I'll go ahead and flip that over and get it centered the best I can on my pillow front here, and then we will press this into place. And I'm also using my heat press to do this. I have my heat press set at 350, and then I press each section for, or no, I'm sorry, I have my heat press set at 335, and then I press each section for 10 seconds. If you don't have a heat press, you can totally use an iron to do this. Just make sure that you have your iron set on the hottest setting with no steam. Okay, so now to embellish this little flower, we are just going to go around all the outer edges of this entire thing with some jute cording, and I'm just using some hot glue to do this, and I try to keep my hot glue like small. I try not to glob it on there because I don't want any of that hot glue to show through after we get our jute cording into place. So you can see here I'm just kind of tracing the whole entire outline of this flower. I lay down a little bit of glue and then go around it with the jute cording, and we will do that to cover this entire flower. And make sure that when you're doing this, you are keeping your fingers protected. I'm just using some of these silicone finger thingies to keep my fingers from being burnt, because you know, we all know hot glue is hot and getting hot glue burns is no fun. So just make sure that you keep your fingers protected while you're doing this step, because I certainly don't want any of you to get burned. Now we can go ahead and snip off our last piece of fabric. I kept this jute just attached to the spool as I was going, and so I just cut it off at the end there and then hot glued that last piece into place. And then I'm going to finish this off with a cute little wooden button that I did string some thread through just to kind of give it that sewn button look. Then we will take this to the sewing machine to finish sewing up our pillow cover. And to finish off this project, we will go ahead and stuff our pillow insert into our pillow cover. And I just got these pillow inserts off of Amazon, and I will have the link for them in the description box for y'all if you are interested. Then after I get the insert stuffed into our pillow cover, I will give it a good fluffing, and that will finish off this project. Alrighty friends, here it is, all finished. What do we think of this one? I kind of like this one. It was definitely the easiest of our 3 projects. It worked up fairly quickly. I think I got this one done in real time in about 40 minutes. So this one was definitely a lot faster, and that, you know, includes all the sewing and everything that we did to this sweet little pillow. Oh, I have it upside down. There we go. So what do y'all think of this one? Alrighty friends, well, I guess that's going to conclude our projects for today. This was so much fun. I loved the projects. I loved how they all turned out. They're different, they're unique, and it was new techniques and styles for me. It was fun. I love to challenge myself to new things. So it was fun trying this with y'all, and it was especially fun celebrating this 1-year anniversary with each and every one of you. I'm so thankful for you and so happy that you were here celebrating this day with me. Y'all come join me again next week. We are going to be working on some super fun home decor projects that I am very excited to share with y'all. So I look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, y'all take care, and I will see you soon. Bye. Oh, goodness. And that's a wrap. It was a fun one.